All right, Scoop. We've got the Storm here for this one. Very, very interesting draw, obviously, with the buy in round 4. Just want your early thoughts, mate. Would you look to take 3, or do you think that might be too many players in there, given the price of some of these guys, like the Grants, the Blores, Paps? How would you play that one?
Yeah, I think three is probably one too many unless you're getting three cheap options, and I don't know why you would, considering the guys that you probably want are your 500k, your 700k, those type of guys. And that's just too much money to be sitting on the sidelines so early, I think. When you get to maybe round 7, round 8, your salary cap will be up high enough that the players that are replaced will be pretty good. But yeah, round 3, round 4, it's going to be a bit of a dent to your points. Your emergencies that replace your 50-point guys are going to be scoring 30. And that's going to be, if you've got three of them, that's 50 points that you've dropped.
Yeah, I suppose if you've got, let's say you have 2 anyway, you're going to cop, a little bit of lower score, which is fine, but you get to loop, I suppose, that 1 or 2 players that you're going to have on the bench, which is cool. Third guy makes it a little bit harder. You're probably copping 20 points that week, but for Terry Grant that you're leaving out, then we know the scores that he can put up. Hey, so can you make that up in the other weeks? Definitely, right?
Yeah, if Grant starts off strong and some of the other options are genuinely good buys, I think they can make up some of the difference. But if you play it smartly, you might not need to. You might have a couple of these guys and then you buy one after their buy or something like that if you want to see how they go. So it's probably not great to go too heavy on Storm guys given their start, but
Hmm.
there are a lot of enticing options which we'll go through shortly.
Yeah. How do you think they're going to go this year?
I think they're going to go a bit better. They did all right last year. I mean, top four is all right by any standard.
Yeah.
For Storm standard, it's all right. But yeah, I think Pappenhausen back, even if he's not 100% early on, is going to help them a bit. The signing of Blore compared to Liera, who was solid but doesn't offer a lot in attack. I just think they've got a few more weapons this year. And even though some of their other middle pack is, I guess, a little bit older and not as fiery as they used to be, they've got a lot of them floating around and can really rotate and get the best out of them.
Definitely, mate. Before we get started with that, just guys, if you're interested in that private group, we're almost up to halfway now on the entrance. So getting, almost 3 weeks out from first game now. So get in, let me know. DM me, guys, and all the details are in the description below of what's involved and the prizes and etc. But jump in there. Also check out the pod, check out the socials as well, and Scoop's always around in all the discords if you ever have any questions as well. And this is where, as well, guys, in the private group, you'll have access to the buy planner as well. I know a lot of people are asking about that. That's where you will get access to that as well. So the Melbourne Storm, mate, Nelson Asofa Solomona kind of switched between the edge and the middle last year. Is there any thought in starting with him?
I'd say probably not. He got found out in defense just purely because he's so big and
Mm.
doesn't have a great turning circle on the edge. He's great middle, and he was damaging when he's running at those smaller defenders. But yeah, when they've brought Blore across, have Howarth sitting there, like I don't think there's a need for him to do it much this year. So to be honest, he's probably going to lose a little bit before he makes any. So not really one I'm very interested in.
You've got Sean Blore as the cash cow, mate, at 518K. Talk us through it.
Yeah, well, there's probably two or three situations that we're going to get. Um, so the rumors and whispers that Loyera is going to be in middle this year grow louder and louder and louder. And we've got three situations. We've got Loyera stays edge, no value anywhere. We've got Blore starts edge, great. There's money there. Or we've got Howarth starts edge and Blore and Loyera in the middle, and that's value there. We've got a bit of news that maybe Alec McDonald might be pushing for a spot too, but I mean, at that point, if Alec McDonald's getting ahead of you, Howarth just leave clubs, get some of that Sydney Roosters money. Come on, but yeah, I think that Sean Blore, if he does start, has the potential to basically be Katoa from last year, moving from a club that didn't do so well in 2022 to Storm in 2023. Katoa did really, really well and has the potential to be that 50-point guy. Blore is similar, averaged mid to high 40s when playing 80 at edge. You add some of that Storm attack in, and you could see 50 points. And he's priced at high 30s. I'd say there's quite a very solid chance it's 10 points of value there at least.
Yeah, well, I have Eli Katoa with sort of 5 to 8 points of value, and he's 140K more expensive, and I think that they could score the same. So yeah, pretty
Yeah.
wild, isn't it? Yeah, Joe Chan there just seems to still be on the fringes at the moment. Very similar to that of Howarth there, but a little less chat on him. Xavier Coates at 395, obviously a sort of up and down season for him, and you've got there to monitor the drop with him.
Yeah, he goes on these dry patches where he barely scores a try for 6 weeks or something like that, and he'll drop to 300K or even below like last year. And then he'll get an easy patch where he'll score like 6 tries in a month and balloon back up and make you good money. It's happened a few years in a row, but yeah, you can't start with him at his price because that's where he'll average for the year. You just gotta monitor the drop as I've got it there. Wait until he's 300K or below and got a good stretch of games coming up.
Beautiful. Harry Grant, mate, round one. What are your thoughts on starting with him? And if not, would you look to get him in around five if he's if he's starting well? Because if you look back actually last year, everyone started with him and he was, a lot more expensive than this, up in the mid to high 800s.
Yeah, so Grant came out of the blocks pretty expensive, but also scoring really, really well. I think he was averaging about 65, 66 for the first little bit, and then, like a lot of other hookers, had a big drop off. So with the meta switching more to play the ball out to the edges and give the centers more ball last year, we could see more of that this year because it worked well for some teams last year. And the time to get on those maximum hooker points could be from the start. You could get maximum hooker points from Harry Grant, scoring in the 60s, early season priced a little bit cheaper. So I don't have a problem with starting with Harry Grant. He's probably going to be the top scorer again this year. He's got Pappenhausen coming back. There's a lot of pluses for him. The only thing I would have against it is his ceiling huge for those first few games? Like, will he knock out an 80 or a 90 to bring that average up to like 65? And that early buy, of course, is a lot of money to have on the sideline. So I'm not against starting with Harry Grant. I personally have Robson and Lussick at the moment. If we do end up getting some centre cheapies, I'll look more seriously at figuring out whether I want to have him in my team instead.
Yeah, because last year he's the one I missed out on, and I just felt like I was just falling behind each week, not owning him. So if you're looking at Harry, just slot him in because Storm were pretty clunky in attack last year, and he's obviously going to benefit some from that. And really, the big thing with him, right, is the forward pack. And if they're not absolutely going forward, and if they're defensively, they're not as good, he's someone that can get high missed tackle numbers. So if both of those things improve, and I do expect it to improve with Blore coming over, with Pat being back, obviously the tack and the defense there. Obviously short, close to the line as well on that left side. If you can get Sean Blore running onto the ball, he can get some try assists and the like there. So I think it's all positive with Harry, and he started well last year. And I suppose you've been touching on that start to the draw is fairly tough in terms of teams. And yeah, is he going to have an 80 or 90 in that? Look, it's unlikely, isn't it? And then that buy in round four, there are some negatives, and we can understand why people are moving away from him. But I do see, apart from just that little draw in the round four, like across the whole season, it's an uptick in improvement for the squad, and probably his fantasy scoring. There's probably a bit of value there. Hey.
Yeah, I think he will outperform his price tag, especially to begin the year. So honestly, if he's sitting around 900K during Origin, is there some world where you sell him and because the centers have started to dominate and he's not going to score as well, and you just get those early season points in cash and pick him up later or something like that. So I think there's a lot of ways you can go about Harry Grant, but either way, you're not going to be disappointed by him.
Yeah, I think the captaincy, there was a little bit of a worry about him potentially losing some minutes to Garlic or something, how they played the back end of last year. But I think him being named the captain, he'll be close to 80 each game. And it's really the ones that he'll get a rest is when he's probably scored really well, and they've got a good win on the board, right?
Yeah, I looked at those games too, and nearly all of those sort of 70, 75-minute games that he had occasionally last year were at the very back end or after Origin. I think
Mm.
there was like one before Origin last year, maybe two. So I'm not worried early season. that's a big reason why he'll outperform that 57 average too. Because if he's on for 80 minutes instead of 75 or 76, your 57 average goes to a 60 average without doing anything.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty simple with Harry, guys. Yeah, we're not going to push you either way on that. I think he's great, and I'm looking at him in my side, and that if I was to get him in that round 4, I need to have a bit of a plan, and I think you do as well. Jackie Howarth, any talk on him, mate? Have you sort of learnt anything, or is it we just watching?
Well, the latest bit of news that came through the other day seems to be thinking that Blore would be edge and Alec McDonald was pushing him, and I couldn't understand that. So like, what is he? Is he just not performing like his price tag? How much they've paid him? Is Are they just waiting another year to develop him? It's been so long that we've heard about him being hyped up year on year. When do we see it? I don't know. If he does start, far out, he's going to make you a lot of money because he's 300K,
Hmm.
but you just got to see it first.
Yeah, it's just where is it going to be? Like it's Remus Smith's spot, like likely. Like Meany's got his spot, it seems like, in centers, and then it's taking one of those edge spots or like a bench kind of utility role. So I think the bench one, we're not even excited about him at 300 anyway. So maybe he comes up at some point, but let's just keep waiting and seeing. Jerome Hughes is an interesting one, mate. He's kind of come out himself and said he's had a pretty poor couple of years. That 2021 season, he was absolutely incredible, averaging over 60, I believe. Yes, it was PVL ball, but they were better in those times. And Hughes always seems to go on runs where he averages 60, 65 plus. And is he someone that you could maybe he's like around 5 or 6 guy if he does drop a bit?
Yeah, well, he's somebody that's always floated around when the price is right, especially around Origin time. I don't think he's one to start with, particularly as he doesn't have tons of upside, plus that early start and early buy. But yeah, I mean, if the Storm do improve this year and he is benefiting as a result of that, if he can push up to a 55 average and you can get on that a little bit cheaper, that'll be really good. And I don't think many people will go for that. But I've got to see it happen first.
Yeah, definitely. Probably next one on the list, mate, is Eli Katoa. As I said, to me, has a bit of value. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he's one of those guys who I'd add to my team if I had like 25 spots instead of 21 like Supercoach. He's just a lot of money in the edge position where we've got so many 400 and 500 K guys who have really good value. He's definitely a shout to be a cut price keeper, like a sort of like a Frizzell bracket last year, who was a little bit underpriced, having some injuries. He had a couple of HIAs and didn't he have like an eye gouge or something like that that kept
Yeah.
him out? Yeah, so poor bloke got a bit unlucky, but he's an attacking weapon. And I don't think he scored a try until like I think he scored like one try in the first 12 rounds. And then the back end of the year, we started to see him being used effectively and he scored a bunch. So if he can do a Nickora, for example, score a few tries running off the back of the halves, he could be some cut price value.
There's probably a couple of times you could look to buy someone like him. Hey, if they do have a fairly tough start and he doesn't score many attacking stats, he could average sort of 45 or so, stick around a similar price, and then after their buy, you can either pick him up around that sort of round 5, maybe round 6, you could say, when they've got the Dogs instead of round 5 with the Broncos, or you wait until sort of round 14 and you've got him for a lovely run in there, all the way up till obviously the buy in 19, but he'll play 20 for you. And yeah, he could be that guy that is a keeper. But yeah, a couple of options in times that you could purchase him, that's for sure. But yeah, it's just hard with so much value in that range, isn't it? Like even myself looking at guys like Scott Sorensen earlier in the preseason, he sounded like someone I could slot in for the entirety of the season. But when you've got guys that are 150K, 200K cheaper, that could almost get you a 50 when Sorensen has sort of 55 upside. It's like it's just not worth spending the money on those bigger price guys in the 600s, isn't it? Unless you think they're a top tier keeper. Yeah, Joshie King
Yeah.
is 670K is an interesting one there for him at 49 average. Probably loses a few minutes, doesn't he? So is he one to watch that maybe if he does lose minutes and then there's injuries and he goes back to a big minute role or something?
Yeah, potentially. He's somebody that kind of surprised us in the last couple of years by getting these big minutes and these solid scores, being a really good workhorse. But yeah, I see that going down a bit unless we do get some injuries. So If he goes below 600, maybe 550, something like that, and he picks his minutes back up again, could be. But yeah, not to start.
Liero's probably in a similar mold, mate. If he does get that middle spot, we know he's obviously a hard worker in defense, and you'd imagine many less missed tackles in that middle compared to on the edge for him. So yeah, if he could sneak it to a 550 or something like that, and then King was injured as well, then big minutes for him in that middle could be 60 plus minutes could be massive for him as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sort of does feel like a Josh King, a workhorse type, it's a plotter that doesn't have tons of attack but does a job. Yeah, I think he'll do all right in the middle this year.
Nick Meaney, mate, you've got down as an avoid if he moves to center.
Yeah, I just don't see really any reason to grab him unless for some reason he holds on to goal kicking. It was 8 points a game last year,
Mm.
and he's priced at 45. So if he's losing the fullback position and losing goals, I really don't see much value in him at all.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Talk us through Cam Munster, mate. I'm pretty excited about him this year. He's come out and said that he's had some issues with his body and sort of how he played. He had a few things coming into the beginning of last season with the pubis injury or whatever it's called, and
Yeah.
obviously having Liero next to him a bit different to having someone like Blore. Talk us through him.
Yeah, definitely. I can't remember exactly what its name was. It was like the same injury that Reynolds was dealing with for a while. It was like osteitis pubis. It was just
Yeah.
it's not a great one and it's really hard to get rid of. So if he's been able to get that right over the off season, and we've got Pappenhausen, who just opens up so much space for him just by being there. Teams don't know and can't commit compared to like last year when they were able to focus more on Munster. So if he can unlock that attack again, and he's got Blore on his outside, and he's got Pappenhausen running around, and he's got himself fit, we could see him push up towards that 62 average he had in 2022. So he's priced at 55. I do see upside for him, and he was someone I would after I went through this, I would really love to put him in my team. He just kind of doesn't quite fit in my plans. And so unfortunately, I'm probably going to have to let him go and watch him for now.
Yeah, yeah, but if you are interested in guys, as you said, almost 4% of teams do own him, and I could see him being about 5% and doing a really good job for sure. Pat, mate, at 495, my favorite player. If he's named in round one, is he just you have to have him in your team?
Yeah, there's not tons and tons of great mid-range wing fullback options this year, and we know what Pappenhausen can do. Even if he's not 100% start the year and warms into it, especially with that soft start, he's going to make really good money eventually and really good scores. If you're paying less than 500k for someone who's a potential wing fullback keeper, like I don't see much downside. The the only worry is, does he put in a few shockers to begin with, just to start the year? But I mean, everybody's owning him. You're not gonna be hurt if he does put out a few ordinary scores to start and then warms into the year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if he was like 650 or something and you were taking a little bit of a punt there that he could come out and be good straight away. But if he does come out and play well, the Storm are great. He's going to benefit from that. And I suppose the big thing in that trial that he ends up playing, just watch if he's goal kicking as well. And that kind of cements it. If he is goal kicking, that you just can't start without him when he has, 60, 70 upside that he got in sort of PBL ball and the like as well. Mate, while we're here anyway, I think we'd already done the Manly pod by this stage, but in that sixth episode of the Manly docu-series, guys, the 15-minute episodes on YouTube, go on and check them out. But the little clip of them saying that, Tommy it's the quickest he's run in a couple of years, and that couple of years would be that season he averaged 70 plus.
Oh, how good. I really hope he stays on the park because he's an exciting player. But as you said, he is that kind of guy who is a bit more expensive and is a bit harder to just stick in your team with that added pressure of needing to score well in order to be at value or make money. So I'm happy to start with Pappenhausen compared to Turbo. But yeah, watch him because Turbo is exciting.
Yeah, and hearing that news, like if that's a couple of years, the last 2 years he's been a bit off. Yeah, like to start with that, he has no buys for a while. There are people that are asking him about Turbo and think he's going to be incredible. He has only had that one really good season. Other than that, he's priced at his his averages basically for all of the other years. But if he can go back to that, we're not going to push anyone away from Turbo as well, mate. But anyone under this list is pretty well an avoid. You've got guys like Marion Seve who can score pretty well. Remus Smith, we were talking about a couple of years ago, that was the option. And then Welch, he's second year back from an ACL. I think that'll help them through the middle as well. And not captain anymore, but we'll see how many minutes he ends up with. And then you've got Will Warbrick, who was a gun for us last year, got up to 447. But yeah, do you think he'll have some improvement in him? But again, not really relevant in fantasy at that price.
Yeah, it depends how they used him. They used him as a battering ram into like three forwards defending him, so he couldn't get monstrous tackle breaks and attacking stats a lot of the time. So he had like a 7 or a teen scoring him quite often, but he did have a few games where he had a couple tries and scored a 50. So I'd probably see more of the same. I think he'll do all right, but won't be really that value for money for fantasy.
Definitely, mate. So yeah, a little bit of player movement in the forwards, obviously with Blore coming in and Katoa being there, those two guys having the value. But you got a few guys losing a fair bit of cash and changing roles as well. Talk us through your pack predictor and sort of what you're looking for here in trials as well.
Yeah, well, it's quite interesting because they're another one of those teams who've got a few really big minute forwards and then a couple that you just put into the rest of the spots. So in order to combat that, I've checked this because it didn't kind of seem really right, but they did it a lot of last year. And that was run two guys who don't play that many minutes, but can if required. So they played Garlic as a middle sometimes and take a few minutes of Harry Grant if needed. That's pretty much his role. And Wishart sort of is outside back cover and just like literally playing like 5 or 10 minutes a game. So honestly, if you want to avoid anybody in the whole of fantasy, please do not buy Tyron Wishart. He might average 5 points a game, but yeah, other than that, it's pretty much the edges because they play 80 minutes. Harry Grant's going to play around 80 minutes. Your Nas, Welsh, Kamakamika are all pretty good players who will demand minutes. So there's not a lot of room when you add in like a Josh King. They all going to cancel each other out a little bit.
Yes, it's just pretty simply Grant, Hooker, Blore, and Katoa is where the value is minutes wise as well. Anyway, because King obviously played, he was 60 odd, high, almost 670, wasn't he, for Josh King? So yeah, there's no real value for minutes anywhere else, as we've seen with that Sharkies pack predictor as well. Is when both edges are pretty well 80-minute guys, it's hard to find value anywhere else unless they're a 250 to 300k guy. Hey,
Yeah, it's really hard to see where much value is going to arise in this pack. Even if we do see something like a Loyero starting lock and Josh King moves into the prop rotation and they don't need as many middles on the bench and they have a bench edge, like maybe that's Howarth finally gets a couple of NRL games. Is Howarth then going to score well? No, he's not. He's going to be a 20-minute bench edge and not do a lot. So really, it's just those two edges who we've got currently, and Grant if you want to start with him.
Yeah, and then you're looking at the draw mate, and there's a fair bit of red to begin things, and you're looking at the guys that we'd be looking at in this pack predictor and the outside backs. There's not many, but halves we mentioned in Munster and Hughesy there. You've got the two edges, and you've got Hooker, and really those guys are looking for some type of attacking stats. All of them. Grant obviously, that's where he becomes the best hooker in the game. So the start is fairly tough. There could be some close games, but that sort of round 6 to 12 was probably where the bread's going to get buttered, and potentially sort of round 14 to round 18 there as well. So it could be a nice run following that bye round to get some value out of these guys, especially if they don't go up in that first 3 games.
Yeah, there's definitely opportunity for you to pick up a couple of these guys later, especially after you've eyeballed their start, because there is a good chance that even if they've started all right, they haven't really got out of hand yet because they've been limited by those early games. If you've started against the guys who finished the top 4 spots in the ladder that weren't you as your first 4 games, I don't think you're going to run away with 3 or 4 consecutive 60s as an outside back.
Yeah, so that might mean that we're interested in these few of these guys to start, but might give you that opportunity that you don't actually miss out on them, and you can just get them a little bit later when your team values up. And there's a couple of those mid ranges that that don't work out. There'll be one or two that don't, and you can look to upgrade them or however that works during that time. So yeah, I'm expecting them to be a fun team to watch again. Yeah, keen to see how Pap goes on return, and really keen to see how Blore goes on that left, and how they use obviously Blore and Katoa there with Nelson coming through the middle. And yeah, they're a super fun team when they're flying, aren't they? And then Pap sort of just in there supporting at all times. So yeah, I have them clearly at sort of into the spots two or three in for my ladder, mate. Do you have them sort of there as well, clearly in the top four?
Yeah, I probably have them second or third as well. It's hard to predict exactly where they will relate to someone like the Broncos, who might be up the top again or might just slide a tiny bit. So either way, they're going to be up the top somewhere.
Definitely. Well, big thanks to you for coming on, mate. Everyone, description, Discord, Community League, it's all in there. Get around it, and yeah, enjoy the next few days. See you later.